Hello everybody, so Michael Greenwood here, and this is the Blackmagic cinema camera 2.5K with the Micro Four Thirds mount. So these are a bit rarer actually, quite rare, and a bit harder to get hold of as a result of that, and they're more expensive than their EF mount counterparts. The benefit of Micro Four Thirds, even though you do have to use an adapter, is that you can use native Micro Four Thirds lenses. You can also adapt to EF glass, as I've done in this case, and PL glass as well. Fantastic, versatile. There's other mounts as well, for example FD. So internal battery. So what we're doing is we're using an external battery pack into the power input. So you can run this directly from the mains, but when you're out and about or in the field, then you do need to have some kind of external solution. The internal battery is really just as a backup in my opinion, and obviously the internal battery in this one is knocking on a bit now, it's a bit old. So using this Blue Max replacement for a BPU 60, as you can see it's huge and you'll get quite a few hours out of this, 74.9 watt hours. And we're just going to plug it in, and I'll just run through the ports really quickly. There's lots of videos running through these ports, so I'm really not going to dwell on it. I think the main things to mention are, besides you've got a remote input, you've got a headphone input, you've got the audio in, which you'll need to adapt if you want to use XLRs. You've got an SDI out, which is usually reserved for higher end cameras, and obviously this camera at the time was revolutionary in that it's a cinema camera, you've got SDI. Cameras of this kind would have been multiples in terms of what they cost you. So yeah, I think it came out about $3,000, went down to about $2,000 at the time, and they're holding the value well, these. So we've got a spacer, because hard drive sizes did change since this camera came out. It is a bit temperamental, a bit fussy with the SSDs that it takes, but I'm using a Samsung Evo 850 2TB. So plug that back in. As you can see, there's a bit of, try that again, plug it back in. As you can see, there's a bit of wobble, so I'm going to use the spacer, which my friend Jonathan printed me out with his 3D printer. Thank you, Jonathan. All metal and rubber design, so really sturdy actually. And yeah, so it's a beast. It is heavy. You don't have the high nits or brightness with the monitor, which I'm just about to switch on, power up the device. So you've got this monitor hood. So don't expect great daylight performance, and it's like a mirror as well, so I can actually see myself in this. So one short press to turn the machine on. You can see that it says no SSD. Takes a few seconds to pick up the SSD, and then it starts searching for it, and then it should say ready. I'm not going to run through the menu, but what I'll say, I'll just run through all the basic settings, and I'll tell you what the native ISO is and things like that, but I'm not going to run through all the menu or anything like that. That's not what this video is about. If you want a video like that, I will make it, so let me know. I'm shooting 2.5K RAW, which is 1350p, so it's higher than 1080p, it's not as high as 4K, and I will tell you that in comparison to the 4K production camera, you get about an extra stop of light, so you've got plenty of light coming into this. It's pretty good in low light, but you don't have the global shutter that the 4K camera has. So I'm shooting at native ISO of 800 with the shutter angle at 180. So shutter angle is a cinema camera term. If you're coming from a DSLR to a cinema camera, you'll probably know it as shutter speed. So shutter angle 180 is the equivalent of 1/48. So like double, if you're shooting at 24 frames per second to make your footage cinematic, as in, to have your cinematic motion blur in action, things like that, in movement shots. You've got two record buttons, which is handy. So that is, it looks like it's kind of ornamental, but that is actually a record button. You've got a record button here as well, and you can play back your footage. And it's got speakers, and it's got internal mics, so you can use that for scratch audio. And what I'll say about these audio inputs is the preamps are bad. They're really bad. They're not usable. besides scratch audio, so I'd just use a scratch audio from the unit. It's not going to be something that you can fall back on really, because it's quite noisy, bad noise flow with it. You've got plenty of mounting options. I have actually got a rig for this camera as well, so it's up to you. These cameras were built to be rigged, you know, with rails and mat box and handles and all that kind of thing, and certainly to have an external battery option. That is a must.